Hello, welcome to the second part of completing the square and circle equations. I'm Mr. Giovanelli and welcome back. And we're still trying to solve the same essential question: when and how do we complete the square to find the center and radius of a circle. But today you're going to see problems that don't look exactly the same as they did yesterday, but they still have the same basic concept, which is completing the square. All right, let's start here. So a circle is given by this equation, and they want us to find the center, the radius, and the diameter. Now, a lot of you asked me questions about this one on yesterday's exit ticket. I think you were confused because this y squared has no other terms by it, but that actually gives you less work. So if we're trying to find the center, you can think of it this way. The center of this circle, I know already the y coordinate is 0. Okay, by looking at this y squared over here, I know that the center coordinate of the y value is going to be 0. So I don't really actually have to do anything with that. To find the x coordinate though, I'll have to complete the square here. One way you can tell is that x squared minus 8x only has 2 terms. So I can't factor anything out. I don't just have the x by itself to make it 0. So I have to add something to this. So I'll keep the y in the problem, but it's not really going to affect us going forward. Let's add the b over 2a value, remember from yesterday, b over 2 squared. I said b over 2a, sorry, b over 2 squared. So we're going to add negative 8 over 2 squared, and make sure you're doing this to both sides of the equation, otherwise it's not balanced. So we end up with x squared minus 8x. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4, and we're going to square that. So we're going to get positive 16 plus that y squared is still there. So we have 32 plus positive 16. So we're going to end up with, if we're looking for the number that multiplies to 16 and adds to negative 8, well, you might have caught from yesterday that the number you want is actually just the simplified form of this. So it's going to be negative 4. So x minus 4 squared right there. And then plus y squared equals 48. So if we go back and answer our original questions here, our x coordinate, because that was a negative 4 down here, is going to be positive 4. So our center is at 4, 0. Our radius is going to be, I'll put these answers over here on the right. Our radius is going to be the square root of 48. And then it also asks for the diameter. And the diameter is just going to be double the radius. So we could call it 2 times the square root of 48. All right, and if we wanted to simplify this, we could. That is the square root of 16 times 3, so 4 times the square root of 3. And so if you doubled that, the diameter would be 8 times the square root of 3. Okay, what about this situation here? So this is another example where we're going to have to complete the square. We're just going to have to get a little more creative before we do it. So they want the center and the radius. So again here, it's important to be able to recognize we don't have to do anything to that x plus 3 squared. So we basically have the x coordinate of the center already. It's already negative 3. It's already in the form I want it to be in. It's the y coordinate that I don't know. Now you'll notice here we're given a number. We're given a number right here. And if you can catch on to this here, you might notice that this does not factor. So what do? There's no two numbers that's going to multiply to 41 and add to negative 12. So here's what we want to do. We want to complete the square, but what you might find easiest is let's get this out of the way. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this equation, and what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to add 41 to both sides. So we've got x plus 3 squared plus y squared minus 12y equals 41. So I just moved the 41 over to the other side. Okay, now you'll notice this looks a little more familiar now. Now we can complete the square. So I'm going to add b over 2 squared. So negative 12 over 2 squared right here, plus negative 12 over 2 squared right here. And so now we have x plus 3 squared plus y squared minus 12y, and that number is actually 36. So we're doing 41 plus 36. Simplify it one more time. We're going to have y minus 6 squared is going to be the factored form, and the 41 plus 36 is going to give us 77. Okay, so we've got this now. Now we can see that the center, the y coordinate of my center we can get from right here is 6, and then the radius, which they also asked for, is going to be the square root of 77, which nothing we can do with that. Only two numbers that go into it are 7 and 11, so we can just leave it there. Okay, here's a problem that you haven't quite actually seen before. So I put this one in here because I think it illustrates this big idea really well. So this is a circle with the center and a point on the circle given, and they want us to calculate the radius. Now you might notice something. We can't just count this distance. We can't count it because it's a diagonal line, right? But if you remember where the equation of the circle comes from, Pythagorean theorem, what we can do here is we can draw a right triangle, and we'll just calculate this distance. I'm going to call it r, but it's going to be like our c value in Pythagorean theorem. So all we have to do here now is we need to figure out, okay, how far is it from here to here? 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm counting. And then how far is it from here to here? And I'm also counting 4 there. So we're just going to do Pythagorean theorem to find the value of the radius. So it's going to be 4 squared plus 4 squared equals r squared. 16 plus 16 equals r squared. So 32 equals r squared. If we take the square root of both sides, r is going to be the square root of 32. And if we wanted to simplify that, it would be the square root of 16 times the square root of 2, which is 4 times the square root of 2. So if they give you a point on the circle and the center of the circle, you can find the radius by drawing a right triangle and using Pythagorean theorem. Okay, very last one I want to do, just to recap on kind of factoring. So here, I want you to be able to recognize that you don't have to find, or rather, you don't have to complete the square if the equation already factors. So if we just want the center here, I'm looking at this part here, and I'm seeing that, okay, I do have a number that multiplies by itself to 1 and adds to -2. That number is -1. So that's my factored form of that part here. Then if I look at the y's, I do have a number that multiplies by itself to 25 and adds to -10. That number is going to be -5. So just like that, I factored this equation out, and now I can answer their question, which was what's the center? And so I flip my signs, and that's my center. So one of your big takeaways from this week's of lessons is, can you tell like when to do things like complete the square, when to factor, or when you don't have to do those things at all? That's really the goal, is to kind of be able to recognize those things and work fluidly. Okay, that's it for today. The exit ticket is like basically a practice test. It's a super good resource. You'll get your answers back right away. It's got a little mix of everything we did this week. Please reach out with any questions. Thank you so much.